up, you guys, and welcome to Mike's Movie Madness, the channel where we talk about all the things in movies and TV that we're madly in love with. And today I'm going to be doing a spoiler-filled review for The Penguin, which is, of course, a spin-off series of The Batman, starring Colin Farrell as the titular character, Oz Cobb, aka The Penguin. So, I'm a huge fan of The Batman. I think I saw it in theaters probably about 6 or 7 times. I can't really recall, but it was one of my favorite movies of the year when it came out. I believe it was 2022 when it came out. And we've been anxiously waiting for The Batman Part 2 to come out, which Matt Reeves is very, very slow at putting together. And I hope he speeds up the process a little bit because I really want this movie. But one of the things that was sort of in flux was the state of his universe because, of course, as we know now, Warner Brothers was bought by Discovery and they completely rehauled DC, and they shut down the DCEU. They brought in Peter Safran and James Gunn to head a new studio, an independent studio, similar to how Disney set up Marvel. Where Peter Safran and James Gunn would be the head of the studio, and they are currently establishing the DCU, the DC universe, and so it called into question where the Batman and everything was what was gonna happen with those. There was already planned spin-offs, like The Penguin was one of them, and there was also an Arkham series that was going to take place in Arkham Asylum, and then a new Gotham series, Gotham PD, that was presumably going to be focused on either Jim Gordon or just the Gotham Police Department in general. Not really sure, but both of those projects got killed or axed. And what ended up staying as a project was The Penguin, and this one was being developed by Matt Reeves, and he brought on writer Lauren, I think her name is Lauren LaFranc. Let me look that up to make sure. Yeah, Lauren LaFranc, who I had never heard of until this show came out, and I looked her up. I looked her up after the last episode, which just aired tonight, and she has a pretty good resume. She's worked on Marvel TV shows. She's worked on like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. She wrote for Chuck, another show that called My Worst Enemy, which only lasted. She has a small resume, but she has written a lot of episodes. So they brought her on to showrun this series, and I have to say, she did an amazing job. Like, from episode 1 right off the bat, this show just grabs you in. It's probably one of the best first episodes of a TV show I've seen since Breaking Bad and Dexter and The Sopranos. Like, those are like some of the first episodes of TV shows where you just know they hook you in right away. And what's amazing about this show is not just Colin Farrell's performance, who if you saw The Batman, he's unrecognizable as the Penguin, and his performance is just next level because he disappears into the role, not just because of the heavy prosthetics and the suits, the bodysuits he has to wear, but just his voice slips away, his eyes slip away. Like, you don't see Colin Farrell. Even in his eyes, you can't see that it's Colin Farrell. And he carries that into the show even more so because now he is the main focus point of the series. And he's in almost every frame of every episode. And he just did an amazing job. And you see that in the first episode, they kind of play with this idea of him having some vulnerabilities, and part of that has to do with his physical appearance and also his physical disabilities. They call him the Penguin, but that's more of a unearned and kind of quite frankly insulting nickname, and I have experience with that myself, having a unearned and insulting nickname from when I was in middle school because I wore glasses. I was referred to as a certain cartoon character, which I will not say which one, but that stuck with me forever. So I can kind of feel his pain that he's being ridiculed as this with this nickname, and that's not what he wants. And he wants to be like this gangster that was in his neighborhood, that came up in his neighborhood, that everybody in his neighborhood respected and loved because he took care of the neighborhood. And when this gangster passed away, they had a parade for him, and he tells this story to the first person who he comes across in the show, which is Alberto Falcone, the son of his former boss, Carmine Falcone. And he comes in to sort of take the reins as the heir apparent to the Falcone crime family. And he tells him this story as a way to try to, one, connect with him, and two, to just show that, this is what Alberto should strive for. Like, he should not be like his father, but be his own man and someone who can be respected. But obviously Alberto takes umbrage to this for some reason, and he straight up insults Oz and calls him out and says that's what you want, and that's why Oz is pathetic. And Dad just sets Oz off and he shoots him dead, which was impulsive and not very smart of Oz, because this is, like, again, this is the heir apparent to the Falcone crime family. So he tries his best to cover it up. And then he comes across who would become his partner in crime in this series, Victor Aguilar, who is someone who suffers from a stutter. And he catches him trying to steal the rims off his car, very Jason Todd-like. And in the midst of him catching him and probably going to kill him in that moment, Vic pleads for his life, revealing his stutter. And in that moment, Oz sort of connects with him because he probably sees a little bit of himself in Vic, with how Oz is physically disabled. Vic has this stutter, which may or may not be a disability, or may or may not be something that Vic himself views as a disability, but he can sort of see that that's probably something that's been a hardship for Vic to overcome. So he decides to not only spare his life, but also kind of force him to help him get rid of Alberto's body. And this whole few, like 30-45 minutes of the first episode, you're kind of wondering, like, okay, what is his plans with Vic? Like, because Vic at every instant thinks that at any moment he's gonna die, but he ends up not only bringing him in, but starting to confide in him. Like, he brings him to his mother's house, where, like, if you know what happens later on in the series, is actually a little bit of a surprise that he would do that. And he starts to put a lot of trust into Vic, and it's a wonder of why he's doing this. And then you start to see the reasons why later on he feels a kinship to him, not just because of his stutter, but probably because he sees himself as a child in Vic, and he sees somebody that he can mold into being almost a pseudo son. And maybe, I don't know, it's just, there's so many layers to it that when you figure out what happens later on in the series, it actually opens up even more, like, layering to Oz's character. So anyway, unbeknownst to Oz, Sophia Falcone, Alberto's sister and Carmine's daughter, is released from Arkham, and she is worried about her brother because she hasn't heard from him since the previous night. And she starts telling him about, well, he starts telling everybody about this drug that he's going to bring in, and that's going to change the game. And Sophia is taken aback because that's Alberto's pitch, and Oz is trying to cover his steps, and he's very good at it, but he he's very quick thinking, and it's great to see the wheels and the cogs spinning, and seeing how Oz gets himself out of the situation. And you can see that Sophia has her doubts and is not stupid. And of course, she decides she's going to figure out what happened on her own, because her family, the underboss and who is her cousin, they pretty much don't want her involved in the family business. And it's a very tense episode, and it culminates in the very end, where Oz essentially is being tortured by Sophia to tell her what happened to Alberto. And all the while, Oz has been setting up the excuse of what happened to Alberto, because he knows he can't keep the body hidden for very long. He knows he can't just make Alberto disappear without raising even more red flags. So what does he do? He goes to see the one man who he can pin everything on, which is Salvatore Maroni. And he gives Sal the ring that Alberto had, which was Salvatore's ring, and he pretty much sets up Maroni for having Alberto killed. And just at the end, when Sophia finds Alberto's body and her guttural scream, like, I kind of had a feeling I was gonna like Kristen Milioti in this role, because I've been a fan of her since she was the mother in How I Met Your Mother. But I had no idea how much I was gonna love her in this role. Like, when she confronts Oz before all these machinations that Oz has been planning come to fruition, they have a lunch together, and in this lunch you can kind of see a little bit of their backstory being told, but without it explicitly being told, with no exposition dump or anything like that. You can just sort of see that there's a history between them. And this is where she kind of, the first inkling of who she is and why she was in Arkham in the first place, kind of start to be told, and which doesn't get fully explored until the next couple of episodes. But at the very end, when Oz has Alberto's body dumped and having her find it, and just the setup, like, it was great. It was a great ending to a great episode, and it leads into the next episode. And I kind of feel like the episode 2, like I said, every episode gets better and better and better as the episodes go on, and episode 2 is no exception. It's all about Alberto's funeral services, his wake, and you just see, like, Oz is still trying to plant more seeds to throw. Even though Maroni's on her radar, she still doesn't believe that it was Maroni by himself, that he had to have had somebody helping her, somebody that could get close enough to Alberto for him to be killed, essentially. So she starts looking more into what could have possibly happened, who could have possibly helped Maroni. And Oz is aware of this, and he's trying to again take away suspicion from himself. So what ends up happening is, you can kind of see, and this is where they kind of first show you a glimpse of just not only how dark and how evil Oz is, but just how manipulative he is. Like, this whole time he's doing this, you're thinking, is it just self-preservation, or what are his reasonings? And then you can kind of see the way that they treat him as if he's nothing but a lackey, as like he was Sophia's driver first, and then he was Carmine's driver, and then like he ended up being Carmine's right hand man, but still never really one of the family, never in a position of true power and authority. Like, yeah, he ran the drugs, but that's one thing versus like a full on racket. And you can sort of see that what and you can sort of see what is driving Oz towards the end of this episode, and what's more important is what's driving Sophia. So it's sort of revealed that Sophia, while she was in Arkham, the only person to visit her almost every day was Alberto, and that's why she doesn't believe, basically, that Alberto would bring Oz into this new operation they had, especially since the operation was her idea, and two, that you see why she's so invested in finding the person who killed her brother, because her brother was the only one who cared about her. So while they're at Alberto's wake, and Sophia is sort of reconnecting with people from her past, mainly one of her cousins who has a young daughter at this point. Like, at first it seems like that's a family member who still sort of is okay with her despite what her past is, and apparently she is accused of being what they call who they called the hangman, which was someone who murdered a lot of young sex workers and strangled them to death and made it look like hangings. And people are afraid of her for obvious reasons. One, she was in Arkham Asylum, and two, they believe her to be a mass murderer or a serial killer. So it makes sense that they have trepidation being around her. And then she has this one semblance of someone from her past who still treats her like she's normal and not this monster. And then it's revealed later on that she does see her that way. She was just trying to play or save face because she didn't want to seem, I don't know, she either didn't want to seem like she could potentially be a target, or she was just trying to be nice. Who knows what what the cousin's motivation was. But anyway, it kind of upsets Sophia, and yeah, you can kind of feel for Sophia. This is where you start feeling for her as a character, where you start to realize that she's not what the people around her make her seem, and there's something more to her. And by the end of the episode, Oz once again takes the heat off of him, and he pins this on someone else, and now Sophia has a new motivation. It's not just about finding the people that killed her brother, but it's about taking over the family and changing the hierarchy, so that way she can kind of take her life back from this family that took basically everything from her. Which leads into episode 3, and this episode is mainly focused on the character of Vic. And one, it reveals his backstory. His family was killed in the Riddler attacks that broke the seawall and flooded the city. And it turns out his family was one of the people that were flooded in. And he has a girlfriend that he cares about, but he's lost at the same time because he lost his entire family. And this episode is really the make or break for Vic. Like, he has this shot at getting away from Oz and this life, and he doesn't take it. I don't know if it's a form of, like, he really truly feels that Oz is his new family, or that Oz cares for him, but he has a chance to leave with his girlfriend, leave town for good, and start a new life, but he decides instead that he's going to stick around and see this through with Oz. And at the end of the episode, it's made abundantly clear to Sophia that Oz was the one that killed Alberto and set everything into motion, which leads into episode 4, which I believe is hands down probably the best episode of the show, of any DC TV show. Like what episode 3 was to The Last of Us, episode 4 is to The Penguin. And this is an entirely Sophia driven episode, and this tells her backstory of what happened to her to get her thrown into Arkham, the tragic tale that is, which is that she's not the Hangman. Her father was the Hangman, which you kind of saw that in the Batman when he's trying to kill Selina and he's strangling her, and he's like, why are you making me do this? He says, just like your mother, just like I did to your mother, revealing that he killed Selina's mother as well. And you could just see, and then he possibly even killed his wife, Sophia's mother, although I think that is more misdirection. They never really go back into it in the remaining episodes, but if he didn't kill her, he was at least responsible for her death, and he maybe kills other people in a similar fashion to sort of either express his guilt for causing her death, or he's just a serial killer and that's the way he kills people who he's tired of. I don't know. They, like I said, it is made more clear that he is possibly just a serial killer, her father, but I like to read more into the subtext of it, and maybe he's not, but who knows? The writers know. That's who knows. But you see the torture that she goes through at Arkham, and you start to see how Arkham changed her, how it corrupted her, and like she went in totally innocent, I wouldn't say not a bad bone in her body, because it sounded like Carmine was going to make her head of the family over Alberto, so she eventually would have done some bad stuff, but at this point in time in her life, she was, for all intents and purposes, innocent. And then she was accused of this crime, the murders were pinned on her, and she was thrown into Arkham, and in Arkham she became the killer that she is now. She was completely corrupted by her stay there, and what ends up happening is by the end of the episode, she completely takes out the entire family save for one person, her cousin, who is the underboss, John Vitti. And she does this for a couple reasons in episode 5, when we start to see not just Oz's whole charade getting taken out basically from under him, and how he's trying desperately to still try to figure out a way to come out on top of this, with now having Sophia coming after him, and also the Maronis for not holding up his end of the bargain. With Sophia, after taking out the entire family, she tries to strike a deal with Vitti Vitti strikes a deal with her that he'll let her take over the family, but she needs him to help facilitate this, because no one's going to want to listen to her. No one's going to want to listen to the Hangman. And at the same time, Oz is trying to set up his own way to take out the Maronis and also take out Sophia. And it culminates in the end with Oz killing Salvatore Maroni's wife and son, and Sophia kills John Beatty, pretty much taking over not creating a new family. And then at the end, she joins forces with Salvatore Maroni, who I forgot to mention is played brilliantly by the one and only Clancy Brown. That's a guy who just classes up every show he's in. And then this all leads into episode 6, which is there's a tiny bit of a time jump, but I think it's only by like a few weeks, and it's not a major time jump. But Oz is now, he's stolen the drug that Sophia was planning on selling to sort of take over everything, and he starts growing it himself, and he starts using local dealers to move the product without any of the major families involved. And anybody he's using that isn't with Sophia, him and Maroni just basically kill, or her and Maroni just basically kill, which starts upsetting the other gangsters and the other who are in their own territory. And now you see Oz really coming into his own as a boss, as someone who can lead. He gives a great speech at the end about how, yes, everything is true that people have heard about him. He did kill Alberto. He did betray Salvatore, and he did betray Sophia. But he says, you know what? Screw him. Who cares? Yes, I did it because they weren't gonna reward me for all the hard work I did. So I'm going to take it for myself. And that's what you guys need to do, because they don't give a crap about you, just like they didn't give a crap about me. And he pretty much corrals them into this super gang. And the whole idea is that they're going to take everything from the Maronis before the Maronis and the Falcones, before they take everything from them. And it was a great episode. It was honestly probably Colin Farrell's best performance of the show. Like, especially the speech at the end. The speech at the end is something that I feel like is going to be what actors start using as their as part of their reels to show the range they have. And yeah, and then it leads into probably the episode that really starts to turn the tide, like, because you kind of see hints, like I said earlier, you see hints that Oz is really not a good guy. Like at first they make him seem like he's a sympathetic villain, like, you know, with him telling the story to Alberto and him just killing him on impulse for insulting Oz. But then they start throwing in more hints that, you know, maybe he's not a misunderstood bad guy, but maybe he's just a straight monster. Like, when he kills Salvatore Maroni's wife and son, he kills them by burning them alive. And you see a slight twinge of a smile in his face when he's watching them burn. Like, and the camera it's a close-up too, with their flaming bodies reflected in his eyes. So it's like, it's not one of those things where it's like, oh, maybe he wasn't really smiling. No, he was smiling. Episode 7 really nails that, really drives that idea home, because episode 7 starts off with a flashback, and Oz's flashback, telling the story about his mother and his two brothers who had previously been said have died when they were young. Now, there was no reason given until this episode, and why they were killed and how they were killed is just about as dark as it gets. So Oz he's the middle child. He has an older brother and he had a younger brother, and his mother loved them all equally. You could tell that she had no favorites, that all of her kids were the same in her eye. But there was something about that bugged Oz. He had a slight jealousy towards that. He wanted his mother all to himself. He wanted the attention all to himself. Now, this could be because of his his disability. Like maybe she cared for him more so than the other two when he was born, uh at least before his younger brother was born. And or maybe there's just something broken inside of him, like that he was born this way. He's just a born psychopath, and he essentially traps uh he they make it seem as if he did it as a fu, because they're playing hide and seek in this abandoned subway, and the two younger brothers who have no disability, they climb down this sewer, overflood thing. I'm not really sure what it's. I think it's meant to uh, house like rainwater, and probably like evenly disperse it into the back into the bay, to make sure, like maybe where the seawall, like over the seawall, so that way cities don't flood. uh so they climb in there to hide, and they know that Oz can't climb down there because it's hard for him because of his disability. And instead of him just sort of taking it as brothers being brothers, he takes it as an ultimate insult, and he locks them in there, and they drown. These his own brothers. He kills his own brothers. And then again, similar to how there was that twinge of a smile when he was watching the mother and son burn alive, when he gets home and his mother hasn't yet it hasn't hit his mother yet that her two other children are missing, and something nefarious happened. They are watching a movie together, and he is cuddled up next to her, and you could see that smile again, that he has his mother all to himself. And it's like, oh god, he is just twisted. And this leads into the rest of the episode, where him and his mother and Vic, they're hiding out in their old neighborhood, and they're still trying to consolidate as much power and influence as they can. And all the while they're battling the elements. They're battling, like, they don't have any power. It's wintertime, and Oz is trying to not only get a hold of territory and really put this drug out there, but he's trying to save his mother. His mother is sick. She has this like form of dementia that also causes hallucinations and strokes, or seizures, I should say, not strokes. And it's not good. It's not a good place for her. But he's doing this all to try to protect her. All the while, Sophia and Salvatore Maroni are hunting them down. They're going to all his known hideouts. They're trying to find out anything they can about him. And this is where it's revealed that he kept his mother being alive a secret. That he didn't want her to be eventually used against him, as she's his last remaining family. That's why I said it's very shocking that he not only brought Vic to her when he right away, but that he trusted Vic with her. And then you get a sense of why he's so protective of his mother. He loves his mom, but there's something more to it. Like, the end of the episode shows that there is something that he wants and he craves. He craves, like, Sophia ends up finding his quote unquote girlfriend, who you see earlier in the season, Eve, who is a sex worker that he hires as his companion, basically. And she talks to Sophia about how Oz basically pays her to just be what he needs her to be, which is someone who's supportive, someone who can just lie to him essentially and tell him everything he wants to hear. And you kind of sort of start to get the idea that what Oz really craves is affirmation. He craves, like, not just respect, but he craves admiration. And yeah, and so Sophia ends up finding their hideout, and she takes his mother. Man, sorry, I'm confusing the episodes. Actually, that actually happened in episode 6, and what happened in episode 7 was the confrontation between Sophia and Oz's mother, which was another great scene. And the actress who plays Oz's mother, I haven't given her enough credit yet. I haven't even named her yet. Let me look her up really quick because I know her name, but I can't pronounce it sometimes. Deirdre O'Connor, I think it is. Yep, Deirdre O'Connell. My bad. And she is amazing. She is able to play both that like strong, like you could kind of see where Oz gets it from, but also like this when she has those moments of vulnerability because of her illness. But what really sets it off is the confrontation between Sophia and Frances, Oz's mother, in this episode, and they have one of the best exchanges of the show. Like honestly, it's like one of those, like, oh, you thought that she was gonna like cry and beg for her life. Now she's just gonna insult Sophia, and insult her. Does she? And but then she has another one of her episodes, and there's like this sense of like almost protection that Sophia gets seeing her like that. Like she doesn't want to use her, but she also knows like, well, I can use her even more now. So she brings in her doctor friend who was her doctor in Arkham, who started working with her because he pretty much is in love with Sophia, and they pretty much start to tear away at the walls that Frances has up. And from this, they're able to glean so much more information about Oz. And it ends with Oz thinking of, once again, that he has gained the upper hand because Salvatore Maroni finds his operation. He attacks him and they have a fight. But unfortunately for Oz, Salvatore Maroni's heart isn't strong enough and he ends up having a heart attack and dies, which really gets Oz mad because it's like, I was supposed to take you out. Like, I got you. No, like everybody's gonna know I got you. And he just shoots his dead body because he's like, no one's gonna know. And it ends with Oz again thinking he has the upper hand, but Sophia showing that she's multiple steps ahead of Oz. She sends her car down, rigs it to explode, and then not only is Oz's operation kaput, but now he is left to deal with trying to save his mother with absolutely no help whatsoever. And this leads into episode 8, the finale, which just aired, and probably one of the best episodes of television in a long time. I would say it would be, if I were to rank the episodes on a season basis, it would be episode 1 in third place, this episode in second place, and episode 4 in first place. This was an amazing episode. It just brought so many things to the perfect conclusion. It was pitch perfect, amazing. Oz has been taken again by Sophia and brought to this nightclub that him and his mother used to frequent when he was younger. This jazz club, I should say, not nightclub. And Sophia has just found out everything, basically, that Frances knew that Oz killed his brothers, that she even contemplating having him killed, and she didn't because I think part of her thought she can fix him, but also part of her thought that that's her only boy left. Who knows what was going through her head at that moment. But she ended up keeping Oz alive. And Sophia sees this as the perfect opportunity to just tear his life apart. Like, she decides that she is going to not only force Oz to confront who he really is and what he really did and tell her mother that, but you also see that Oz is totally incapable of admitting any type of guilt and admitting any type of fault. Almost as if he's been telling the lie for so long that he believes it to be true, and he can't come to terms with the fact that he has to confess everything to his mother in order to save her life, or in this case, save her finger, because they threaten to cut her finger off if he doesn't tell his mother the truth. And they get like halfway through her finger before Sophia just tells him, like, no, I'm not gonna, like, she backs out of it. So because she's like disgusted with Oz that he can't even tell the truth in this instance to save his mother's finger. And anyway, of course, as you do, he gets out of it, and she unfortunately has a seizure at this moment, or no, a stroke, and she collapses, and he's able to not only get out of the jazz club, but he's able to get away and reconvene with Vic at the hospital, and then they have a whole new plan to try to come out on top. But it kind of seems like there's no hope this time, because everybody who was on Oz's side, all the other gangs that he had managed to bring together, they turn on him on a dime as soon as they realize that he has nothing left to offer. And Sophia has been grappling with this idea of her taking over the family, especially because her cousin's young daughter, in the previous episode, she's been put in a group home because obviously she has no family left, no living family, at least, other than Sophia, and Sophia's in no place to take care of her. And she starts to kind of see the effects that she's having on her family, on this young girl. Like, she basically did the same thing that her father did to her. And I think this is where the seed of Sophia's doubt about taking over the family and being this head of this criminal organization is really maybe not what she wants. She just wanted to be free of her family and start a new life. And then seeing how Oz treated his own mother, I think that just really, like, set it in stone for her that she does not want this. That if this is where she's willing to go, and two, if this is what her life is going to be, she just doesn't want it anymore. So she is ready to give it away as long as someone can bring her Oz and she can kill him, because that's the one thing she wants to do before she just hangs it up and goes and starts a whole new life. And unfortunately, and this is where the show is brilliant, because again, in the first episode, they make Oz seem sympathetic. They make him seem like, yes, he's impulsive, he's hot-headed, but like, so is Tony Soprano, so is Walter White, so was Don Draper. Okay, maybe not Don Draper, but you know what I'm saying. So it was like, they always make your quintessential protagonist or anti-hero protagonist the lesser of the two evils. They always make his or theirs antagonist worse than they are. But in this case, it's the exact opposite. This entire show has been making Sophia the ultimate sympathetic villain, and Oz, the ultimate non-sympathetic villain. Every action that Oz has done since episode 1 has just gotten him deeper and deeper and deeper into that darker, like really vile villain that you always want to root against. And every action that Sophia has done has, yes, she's done questionable things like killing her entire family, but everything she has done has been the result of what her family did to her. And you ultimately feel the utmost sympathy for her. And even Vic, who is loyal to a fault, he is doing everything just out of pure loyalty to Oz. Like, there is nothing that he wants more than to help Oz, because like I said, he has a sense of loyalty to him. He is the only family he has left. And what this episode does in the final 20 minutes is nothing short of brilliant, because it has been setting up the foundation that Oz is horrible. Oz is a monster. Oz is not the hero. He is not even the anti-hero. He is the villain of the story. And it's something that no TV show or movie, whenever they say they're going to have their premise is going to be following a villain, they never let them stay the villain. They always make them somehow the hero at the end. They even did that with Walter White in Breaking Bad. Spoiler alert for Breaking Bad. Yes, he sacrificed himself, yes, he died, as he should have died, but they still had him kill somebody who was worse than him. Like, they still had him go out, quote unquote, in Walt's point of view, a hero. Nope, not in this one. Not only does Oz set up Sophia so she can go back to Arkham, after Vic comes through and gets everybody else back on Oz's side to take over control of Gotham, he tells him in the most heartfelt moment of the show, and the saddest moment of the show, and the most betraying moment of the show, and the, oh my god, I can't believe, like, I almost was like, oh no. He tells Oz, "You're my family, and I'll do anything for you." And in that moment, Oz is like, "I really appreciate that, kid, but I can't take you with me." And he kills Vic. He kills the one person that everybody, and I mean everybody, was rooting for in the show. And it's in the most cold and brutal way you can. He strangles him to death. Not gonna lie, I was low-key, like, mad the whole time that was happening. Oh my god, I hate him now. I want Batman to come in with the full force of his bat equipment and just take Oz out. Like, I want the Batman 2 villain now to be primarily Oz, just so we can see we can have the cathartic moment of Batman taking Oz out. And then I also feel bad for Sophia. The one place she didn't want to go back to, she ends up in. She's back in Arkham. She was on the verge of leaving and starting anew, and then she's back in the one place she didn't want to be. But she has one glimmer of hope, and that is her half sister Selina Kyle reaches out to her. So hopefully she breaks her out, because she doesn't deserve to be in there. Like, yeah, she's bad. She's not a good person. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that she doesn't deserve punishment, but she deserves to be in regular old prison, not Arkham. And then Oz's mother, it was also, who's in a catatonic state. She's basically in a permanent vegetative state. the one thing she asked of Oz is that she ever gotten to that point because of her illness that she wanted Oz to kill her, basically, to euthanize her. And because when Sophia was trying to force Oz to admit what he had done, in that moment, Frances admits her truth, which is that she hates her son, that she hates what he's become, what he stands for, and that she hates that she's his mother. And that, I think that's what really breaks Oz, and that's why he ends up killing Vic later on, because he just realizes not only is family a liability, but family will hurt you. And he ends up on top. He ends up becoming the head of everything, and he's in this penthouse apartment, and he's in a full tuxedo regalia, and he even has Eve back in his life, although this time in a very Oedipus way, has her pretending to be his mom and telling him all the things that he wanted his own mother to say. And the cherry on top of why Oz is a vile villain, he has his mom in that penthouse, in that vegetative state, just looking out of a window, basically having her trapped in her own body and her own mind to live out the rest of her life, just forced to be there with her son, who she doesn't even want anymore. But the glimmer of hope is that the bat signal shined in the sky, and Batman is hopefully on his way to kick Oz's ass. But that's the end of the series, and there has been talks of a possible season 2. Colin Farrell has said multiple times that he's not sure if he wants to go through the whole makeup process, because it's a 3-hour makeup process, and I forget how to say his last name. Renzi Felice. Sorry, I was saying it wrong. Renzi Felice, who plays Vic, he was on an interview with Christian Harloff recently, and Christian Harloff asked him that question about a potential season 2, and he was pretty blunt about it, that he's not sure if Colin has it in him, because if there was a 5 a.m. call time, Colin had to be in the makeup trailer at 3 a.m. He always had to be in there at least 2 to 3 hours before everybody else did, because of the makeup process. And I just saw a headline before I started this that he's open up. Colin Farrell said, of course he's open to a season 2. Like everybody always says, you say that when you're done with it, because that's all you've known, that's all you've had as an experience. But once it comes out and you see the fruits of your labor, like that can kind of change your mind a little bit. So I'm hoping that seeing all the praise the show is getting, both critically and from the audience, has swayed Colin Farrell a little bit to at least be open to the idea of a season 2. But if it does come, it's probably going to come after the Batman 2, and this might be a cool way to close out the Matt Reeves saga of films, where Batman 2 comes out, then Penguin season 2 comes out, and then we get the Batman 3 and close out the show, or close out the saga. But I'm also hoping that he comes back for at least the Batman Part 2, and because there's all this talks of who the main villains are going to be, and I don't know why he's not considered to be one of the main villains, because at the end of this, he's head of everything. It only makes sense that he should be the main villain. So I hope that's the route they decide to go for, but it's not. In Matt Reeves, I trust. So anyway, guys, what did you think of the episode, or what did you think of the series? Are you like me? You think it's one of the best DC TV shows out there, one of the best Batman properties out there, or did you hate the show? Did you think it was not good at all? Like, let me know down below in the comments. And I've been Mike. This is Mike's Movie Madness. Take care.